Okay. Okay, guys, let's start from where we ended. So I ask you people that you have to answer in few lines regarding these four charges. The four charges were given by Goshen. Okay, let's start. Who is there? The nine participants. Yes, Sajida.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Sir, according to me, poetry is depends upon our imaginations, and our imaginations is connected to our thoughts, and poetry cannot be an amusement, because when we have to create something, we have to imagine first, and it might be that possibility that it can be lies sometime.
Okay. Here, Musawwir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. What do you say about these charges?
Sir, I would like to share my point of view related to poetry is the mother of lies. Sir, poetry is not mother of lies. Sometimes we realize that poetry relates to our practical life, and sometimes we realize that poetry is related to imagination.
Hmm.
Uh,
Okay.
when we use when we use when we use literary devices, uh, we compare our any relation with the uh, nature, with the nature of beauty.
Okay, thank you. Next, Mr. Amar Hussain. Amar Hussain.
Sorry, sir, which question?
Yeah, the questions are visible.
Uh, Sir, my first question, a man could imply. The answer of this question, I think the poetry is often used for entertainment. So
Hmm.
that's why poet, sorry,
Yeah, please carry on.
poetry, sir, poetry always often used for entertainment. That's why poet use a rhythmic and figurative language, which fail to recall the intellect, and that's why people what they think they feel to act that like what they say through poetry. And I think second, the mother of lies, poet often use metaphor, simile, and other poetic devices to make poetry charmable. They personified non-living things as living things and exaggerate this situation and more attractive. So the real things are not as which they expressed. So they tell the lies to the people. And for third question, I think the poet only preach the ideal, their own ideology. They did not concern to the. They do not concern with the real life, and their lives are also against what they teach to other, what they express to others, and that's why their lives are not
Okay, good.
their lives were not exemplary and we can follow them, so they only preach the wrong things and abuse to the others. And as for Plato ideal state, I think Plato's Republican was only based on ideal morality, and he want to limited the poetry because he want to control the thoughts of people and their imaginations, that they did not question their state and about new thoughts about the new ideas, and they only follow what they say to them and only act as ask them.
Okay, good. Next, please, Samin Zahra.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what do you say? You may comment any of one or many of them.
Sorry, sir. I'm come on late. Actually, my electricity is gone. That is why
Okay. Can
I'm
you
not
read?
able to answer any.
Okay. Okay, let me ask you the one question. That is, what is poetry? Can anybody define it? What does mean of poetry? We are coming here to answer.
Through poetry, we can ponder our thoughts and ideas in a much better way. And it is a source of relaxation, amusement, and it also educates us.
What is this poetry?
So, poets create something by emotions and imagination.
Okay, you can find in the fiction too then. In a novel, you can find all this, whatever you are saying. So, what is the difference then between novel and then poetry?
Hello, sir. I think poetry is all about poets' expressions or feelings and what they feel. So the feelings that they feel, this is how they express their feelings in their work. So the feeling can be true. So whatever they feel, they try to reveal those things in their work. So it's all about the feelings and the expressions that they feel.
Okay. Again, the same question. Can we find all these things in novel and drama?
Uh, in my point of view, yes, we can find these things um, in novel and drama as well.
So, what to use of imposing poetry upon us then? What to use of reading and learning poetry if we can find all the things in novels?
Sir, basically, if we see the difference in prose, if we are talking about the prose, there are common words are used, uh, which cannot be which cannot define the imagination or express the imagination as we can do it in the poetry. So poetry is far different from the prose, and
Sir, may I?
the imaginations and the feeling well in poetry form than the prose form.
Okay, then I think that credit should be given to the novel means prose, because you would find the common words over there. In the poetry, if there are hard, obsolete words are used, the reader cannot amuse it because he is not understanding them.
Sir, actually, I think there's a structure. So we find different structure in both of the things, like in poetry and drama. In poetry, we see
Drama.
figurative language,
Okay, okay. Let me clear a bit.
novel or drama.
Yeah.
I mean, say novel.
In poet,
In,
in prose, we have set rules for writing the prose, but in poetry
Sir, may I define?
we can be even the lines can be free.
Okay. Okay, any other?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I think poetry is more playable than prose, and we can sing and recite it and learn by early.
Okay, very good point. The one
But
point
I
is
think, sir,
yes.
novel or prose is more easy to understand, because if we compare this with poetry, poetry in poetry, figurative language is used, so it's hard for people to understand because of the similes, metaphor. Only the learned person can understand such things, in my point of view.
Sir,
Okay,
may
you have fixed.
Al- Also, the poetry has different. We can get different ideas from the same lines, but in prose, we have the same understanding what is written in the prose. So the poetry gives multiple dimension its meanings.
Okay, very good. Another good point. Yes, in the prose, we see there is basically the setting, there is a background.
yes, sir.
Okay, through
Poetry
that
has a
background.
poetry has a particular stanza form, and it is written in stanzas. There is a good literary work, and very different between the drama and poetry. There is a big difference because in the drama we read a story, but poetry in the poetry we learn about literary devices, and it has particular moral. It is used for showing the love of duty uh, compared with nature, etc.
Okay, uh, what is your name? I think your
Abdul Mustaqbal.
connection is creating some problem.
Abdul Mustaqbal.
So I think you had better change your connection because it's creating problem.
Okay.
Anyhow, any others want to participate? Okay, let me tell you. Poetry basically urges you to think, not prose. Don't you think? When you don't understand that what is basically going on through these verses, so you pressurize your mind to think. You urge your mind to go where the poet wants you to go. It means it it will sharpen your skills of imagination, by the way. And secondly, you would see poetry is the first medium of writing. The more importantly, first of all, in writing, we see that the poetry exists over there, such as, for example, English. In English, did you find directly novel? No,
No.
there was the poetry. You might have studied Geoffrey Chaucer, though it's a prose, but it was in the form of poetry. Okay,
Yes.
Beowulf, you might have read it about the Beowulf is the
Yes.
first poetry anonymously was written because we don't know the person name, but it is a poetry. It was written first time in the history of English literature. Okay, let's talk about then the Arabic language. Yes, it was poetry over there too. So how can you deny? Because it is basically the first medium. It is basically creating the rest of other form of writing, and one can claim that the poetry is basically is not is a mother of lies or is not good. Okay, let's see what happens next then. Okay, so this is what you may find it. So we are going to discuss them gradually. An apology for poetry. The prologue means introduction. You would see that when Sir Sidney Flip comes, so he starts with the prologue, with the introduction. In the introduction, he tells he justified his stand by referring a half humorous manners to discourse on horsemanship by Pietro Pagliano. This man basically is the horseman, and he is giving the reference of this man. What does this man say? He basically appreciate what does he appreciate? The horsemanship. If the art of horsemanship can deserve such an eloquent eulogy and vindication, surely poetry has better claims for eulogy and vindication. If this man basically is appreciating, okay, admiring his art of horsemanship, so why not then poet? Because you should love your profession. If somebody asks me, okay, tell me something about your profession, so definitely I would appreciate it because that is my profession. So no one else in the world that can defame his or her profession. Can you defame your profession? I don't think so. So similarly, he is appreciating. He says that if the person is appreciating that is horseman, so I should also appreciate my profession being a poet. The poet has better claims for eulogy vindications. He says, I have many claims, many reasons for what? To appreciate as compared to this man. There is just cause to plead a case for poetry since it has fallen from the highest estimation of learning. Yes, as I told you in the beginning, it is the first medium of writing. It is the highest estimation of learning to be the laughing stock of children as well. Not only you learn, but also it is the basically mode of creating laugh, smiles, humors among children, not only adults. It was the response to Stephen Gosson's Schools of Abuse 1579 that leveled serious charges against poets and poetry. It was carefully planned and organized with judicial argument in the form of classical oration. So it was basically the conspiracy against the poetry. Okay, let's divide all these things. How does he basically answer? I'm sorry. Divisions are these following. Exordium. Exordium means an introduction, as I told you. An introduction announcing the topic in such a way so as to gain attention and goodwill. Means you see that your starting depend upon, if your starting is good, automatically the end will be good. If the starting means introduction is not good, so definitely somewhere else we can start. His introduction was very good. Sidney states that a humorous reference to the treatise of John Pietro Pagliano, written in praise of horses and horsemanship. He basically praised the horses. Horses are like this, blah blah. He basically, and then the horsemanship, because basically horsemanship are very good person. They are brave because they have to ride on the horses. They have to go in the war in order to fight, and they are the bravest person. So he was admiring in such a way. So why not a poet should appreciate in the same way? Because to be brave and war, that is good, but to sharpen the skills of wit, that is more important. Okay, how about the way of narration? The statement of the facts of the case. Sidney states that the poet's aim is to teach and delight. There are two words used. What is the purpose? To teach and delight. Okay, there is two method is used. One is deductive method and second is the delight method. The deductive method means that at the end the poet will give you some moral lesson. Okay, moral lesson means at the end there would be a clear message and you can clearly understand. So it means poet basically is teaching you. But sometimes what happens, the poet does not give you the clear message. Actually he leaves upon you while creating some ambiguous objects. So you basically you basically take up your own answers and you become happy then, because now the poet has left upon the reader. And this is the basically the two techniques are used as a narrative mode, in a narrative mode. Proposio. Theses are arguments. Sidney refers three kinds of poetry. Okay, later on we will see. Confirmation. Evidence that supports theses. Sidney gives arguments that show the superiority of poetry over other disciplines. Actually, Sidney would state the appreciation of poetry in such a way to show the superiority of poetry upon other disciplines. Means, suppose he would say the poetry is superior even than philosophy, even than scientific subjects. Okay, how we would learn. And then the refutation. Answering arguments, Sidney answers all the charges leveled against poetry. He would basically answer all the questions that has been charged by Gosson. And then digression. He deals with the state of poetry in England in his own time. He talks about his own time. Perorati. This is basically the end, the conclusion. He concludes with an appeal to poets to write with decorum and restraint, and ends with a touch of humor. He is at the end, he will give his own suggestion that what a poet does, or what once basically a poet is going to write any kind of the poetry, he has to care. So it means he is giving some structures, some boundaries. At the end, there must be a humor. If there would be the humor at the end, the reader will not get bored. If decorum means if your poetry is not good, and then the reader will not enjoy. If the reader will not enjoy, then what will happen? The poetry's purpose will fail. Okay, we would also study one of the theory that is very prominent, and that's motto is the birth of the reader is the death of the writer. Means if I have written something else and I'll give you to read it, and I want you to take out your own meaning, so it means I have stopped my role over there. Now I can do nothing until unless I did not write it. So I was able to mold and fold it, but after that, once it comes in the hand of the readers, they have to extract their meaning. So this is called reader response theory. We would learn inshallah, and then over there you will get to know what is the role of the reader. Now let's talk about the Sidney response. As you know, poetry has been held in high esteem since the earliest times. It has been the first light giver to ignorance. You know, the ignorance over there, Stone Age over there, when basically poetry came, it, it is the first medium to give the slight light to ignorance. The earlier Greek philosophers and historians were, in fact, poets. Even among the uncivilized nations, in Turkey, among the American Indians and the Wales, poetry enjoys an undiminishing popularity. Now he says that poetry basically is not the existence nowadays. It's basically poetry, as I told you, is the first medium of writing. Poetry, if we see the existence of the poetry, so we have to go back in the Greek. There were the Greek philosophers and historians though. And if there is historians and philosophers, there automatically will be the poets. To attack poetry is therefore to cut at the roots to culture and intelligence. It means the poetry has sharpened the mind of philosophers and the historians too. Okay, philosophers means the one who believes in reality. Whatever the reality and the truth is there, their work is finished there. If they have found some truth, then logic and reason is there, then their work ends there. Historian means they talk about the reality only. But how about then the poets? Where their work ends, their work start from there. Is there any boundary of imagination, by the way? No, there is no boundary of imagination. If there is no boundary of imagination, so they can be called superior than historians and philosophers too. So this is what one cannot cut the root of the culture and intelligence. Because of this, basically the philosophers has become intelligent. And because of the poetry, they get to know about the culture too. So how can you cut it? The ancient Romans paid high reverence to the poet by calling him Vates. Let's talk about the ancients. Ancient means old times. They were giving some respect to the poet and they called them Vates. It means diviner, it means a prophet, or it means foreseer. These are the quality we can find in prophet. The etymological origin, I mean, if we go to the origin, historical origin of that word, poet, so we take it poem in Greek, and this means to make. Poem means to make. Hence, the uh, Greeks honor the poet as a maker or creator. So you would see the poets basically is a maker or the creator. How can he be defamed? Because the one who is creator, who is maker, so he is a creative person. Creativity is the superior than rest of all the things. This suggested the divine nature of poetry. So see, basically he's giving the reference of ancient Romans. They were giving the respect, but here this Gosens basically is defaming. Poetry is an art of imitation, yes, and its chief function is to teach and delight. Okay, what do you say about the imitation? You have studied.
Yeah, we can. Yes,
Copy. It's mean copy.
it is the reflection also.
Is it good to be
Imitation
imitated?
means it's also called copy something.
Okay, is it good to copy?
If
If
if the
something is
thing is very
inside, then it is good to copy and express it.
यानी कि जो आपको पसंद आ जाए आप उसे कॉपी कर लें हूबहू. Where is your your creativity then? Modality.
Sir, if there is something inside your imagination or inside the feelings,
sir,
and if you
actually
imitate in the forms of words or expression or the body language, that is the imitations, and it has to be imitated to
copy the
express
idea
out.
is good.
Okay.
Copy the idea is very good.
Okay. Okay. Have you studied?
Not copy the whole word, but
Have you studied the Self-Reliance by Emerson? Did you
No,
study?
sir.
Yes. Okay. You haven't studied. He said imitation is suicide. Here is we are appreciating this word imitation. Anyway, so poetry is an art of imitation. Basically, poetry means that we get some source. Okay, the idea. For example, you are having an idea. If I ask you how did this idea come in your mind, you must tell me the source of it. Once you are going to tell the source of it, it means that you are imitating. For example, an idea comes after seeing beautiful scenario of garden. So garden basically is basically the source of producing that idea. It means that you are imitating. It is good or bad, we are not discussing it, but I'm telling you the imitation. And its chief function is to delight and uh, teach and delight. Imitation does not mean only copying or reproduction of facts. It means a representing or transmuting of the real and actual, and it sometimes creating something entirely new. Yes, it is. इसका मतलब हरगिज यही नहीं है कि कॉपी और पेस्ट हो बस. इसका मतलब ये भी तो हो सकता है कि कोई आपने इमिटेट किया, आफ्टर दैट यू आर मोल्डिंग एंड फोल्डिंग अप टू योर लेवल ऑफ योर थिंकिंग. देखो अभी कुर्सी पर हम सब बैठे हुए हैं, ठीक है, चेयर पर. ये कुर्सी जाहिर सी बात है कब से बनी हुई है, वी डोंट नो. लेकिन जो तरखान है, बनाने वाला जो है मेकर, वो इतनी खूबसूरत कुर्सी बना देता है, ठीक है, बड़ी कंफर्टेबल होती है, अच्छी लगती है, खूबसूरत लगती है, एंड वी बेसिकली सिट ऑन दैट चेयर. But what does it mean? Doesn't he copy? Doesn't he imitate? Yes, he does. But credit is supposed to be given that person because he has molded and folded in such a way it becomes a very comfortable for us. And that is why imitation is good in that sense. But it doesn't mean that we are supposed to be a blindly follower. Whatever the person has made and deco copy, we are making it. The poet Sidney declares, lifted up with the vigor of his own invention, yes, does grow in affect another natures, in making things either better than nature bring forth, or quite a new form such as never were in nature, as the heroes, demigods, cyclops, chimeras, furies, and such like. These are the basically the gods, we can say, the big name of it. But what happens with the poetry? Poetry basically uplift the level of our invention, our imagination. For example, the nature. Nature is there. Poetry is the one who is making the nature more beautiful. Okay, let's talk about the flowers you daily see. But through the poetry, you would see the appreciation of the flowers. The flowers is like this, its fragrance is like this. Once you see, so you start loving nature because of the poetry. हालांकि उससे पहले आप देखते हैं अब दरख्त वगैरह है, माउंटेन वगैरह थे. When I did not study literature, I would see them as usually. मैं ऐसे ही देखता था उसको. But having seen them, जब मुझे उसे पता लगा तो मैं बड़ी अजीब निगाहों से देखता उसे, यानी एंजॉय करके देखता था कि देखो कितनी खुदा की कुदरत है, कितनी अच्छा मौसम है, कितनी अच्छी, मतलब these are beautiful scenery, spectacular scene are there. So I started enjoying it because of the poetry. I don't know what how do you see after studying poetry? Do you enjoy?
Yes, sir, we enjoyed.
What? Marukh,
Yes, sir.
क्या हुआ बेटा? ये हाथ में क्या है? मतलब आपके कलम आ गया और आप लकीरें मार दी?
No, sir, by mistake.
अच्छा, बाय मिस्टेक. चलो, अच्छा करा आपने मिटा दी.
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, I enjoy that the new thing we are getting through online classes, and the topic is very well. It's very interesting.
It is LC. You must enjoy it. अभी तो आगे ड्राइडन आएगा,
Yes,
फिर
sir.
और एंजॉय करेंगे आप इंशाल्लाह. Okay, so how my question was this: how do you enjoy the nature? Nature means, for example, you go in the garden, you go in the park, or maybe in mountainous uh, area where you see the lake, where you see the river. How do you see? Have you ever gone before being the student of literature or after literature?
Yes, we enjoy, especially the people who are living in the crowded areas. They, when they go to these areas, they enjoy over there because there is peace and calm. And obviously, if the person who is studying the literature, he will think about the creator of these things also. When he looks at the flowers and the mountains and the clouds.
Okay. They people, uh, those who are dwelling in there, they do enjoy as well. But the people who basically rarely go over, they enjoy much. क्योंकि इंसान की नेचर है, जब उसके पास कोई चीज़ आ जाती है ना तो उसकी कदर कम हो जाती है, और जिसके पास नहीं होती उसको ज़्यादा कदर होती है. तो दिस इज़ व्हाट लिविंग इन कराची and thinking about such areas, southern areas, so these are the blessing for all of us. But we know the
Yes,
value
sir.
of it because
Yes, sir, it's true. Because I also experienced this thing in my life twice or thrice. Can you hear me, sir?
yeah, I am hearing you.
Okay, so I went to Naran Kagan, and there were so many places, and they were so beautiful. There was a lake which is called by the name of Saiful Maluk Jheel. It's very beautiful. It has a cup shape, and the water it contains it has two type of water, green and blue. So it was so beautiful, so beautiful. I really enjoyed it. So that is all about the nature and how we enjoy the nature, because nature is really, really, really appreciable.
क्या याद दिला दिया आपने.
Saiful.
और वो भी इतनी गर्मियों में. The
Yeah,
people,
in June or April, I think so. I went there.
the people basically who have gone over there, so you have reminded them all these things, or you might have
Yes, sir.
heard them even. Okay, yes.
Twice I went there.
Okay, you are lucky then. You are luckier then.
It's so good to be there. It's so good to be there. It was wonderful experience.
Yeah, I would rather say that the literature student must go such places because the way
Yes, exactly.
you are going to enjoy, not other people are going to see and enjoy it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I must say
I
that.
have another experience also. I went to Murray and I met a girl over there. The, she was a local person over there, and I said to her that you are living at a very beautiful place, but she said that these things are nothing for us because these are not giving us money. Especially in the season of the snowfall, we face many problems.
Of course, this is what I said. The people who are living over there, they don't know what is the value of it. क्योंकि इट्स नेचर. जो चीज़ हमारे पास आ जाती है ना तो हम उसकी कदर खो देते हैं. हमें दो ही वक्त में पता लगती है उसकी कदर, या तो हम उससे दूर हो जाए या वो हमसे दूर हो जाए, फिर पता लगता है. लाइक दिस एनी हाउ. So poetry is the one that create the imagination power. This is what he says. Nature. Okay, please can you read any of you so that I can get to know that who's awakening.
Sir, allowed or silent reading?
He is allowed. Otherwise, we will all sleep.
Okay. And nature never set for the earth in so rich tapestry as diverse poets have done, neither with pleasant rivers, fruitful trees, sweet smelling flowers, nor whatsoever else may make the too much loved earth more lovely. Her world is brazen, the poets only deliver a golden.
देखें जो सारी बातें की हैं वो सारी की सारी यही हैं. ठीक है. A poet basically can describe about such things very beautifully. Have you ever seen that such things are being described in any prose section in such a way? I don't think so. As the poet described, as the poet delivered it in a golden way. For example, when the word come daffodils, have you ever basically seen the admiration of daffodils? कभी daffodils जो फूल है, flowers है,
never in the prose.